Welcome back. Let yourself arrive here slowly. You do not need to explain tonight. You do not need to justify the feeling that brought you here. Simply arrive. Let us breathe together first, the way the sages have always taught. Breathe in slowly through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let it go out through the mouth. Slower still. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again. In. 2, 3, 4. And out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let the out-breath carry something with it. Let the shoulders fall a little. Once more. The softest yet. In and slowly out. A word to rest upon, whisper like a leaf set on water. Om Shanti. Peace. Whatever you are carrying tonight, you may set it beside the river, just for now, before the sage speaks tonight. If this channel brings you rest, a subscription means we can meet here again. And while your mind is still present, I would love to know where in the world you are listening from, and what part of you feels most unseen or unheard right now. Leave it in the comments below. Let it rest there tonight, so you do not have to carry it into your sleep. And now, let us begin. Come with me to that old land, that old time, where the great river moves slowly through the dark. More stars tonight than usual, as though the night itself has something to show you. The water turns softly over the smooth stones, and there, beneath the ancient banyan tree, the old sage sits beside his small steady lamp, waiting, as he always waits, for whoever the river brings tonight. Tonight, the river brings someone who is not broken, not grieving, not exhausted. This traveler has people who love them, a life that works, people present in every room, and yet they walk down to the riverbank slowly and sit, and for a long time say nothing at all. When finally they speak, their voice is quiet. The voice of someone saying something they have never said aloud before. Holy One, I do not know how to explain this properly. I am not alone. I have people who love me. I am surrounded, and yet. A pause. There is a place inside me, the deepest place, where no one has ever reached. My closest friend, my family, the people who know me best, they come close, and then something stops them. And I lie awake at night, not from loss, not from grief, but from the ache of that gap. The gap between all this connection and this one place inside that has never been met. Is something wrong with me? The sage looks at the traveler for a long moment with great warmth. You have asked, he says softly, the most human question of all. Not the most painful, but the most human. Because every person who has ever lived deeply has stood at exactly this place. Let me tell you 3 stories tonight about 3 people who knew this feeling exactly and what each of them found at the bottom of it. My first story, says the sage, is about a very specific kind of loneliness. It is the loneliness of the person who is surrounded by love and still feels like a stranger in their own life. Like everyone around them is speaking one language, and somewhere deep inside they speak another, and no one in the room speaks it with them. If you have ever felt that, then this story is for you. Long ago in the kingdom of Rajasthan, there was a princess named Mira Bai. She was born into one of the most powerful royal families in India. And as a small child, something happened to her that she could not explain. A wandering holy man passed through the village carrying a small idol of Krishna. And Mira watched him worship it with such complete absorption, such total unself-conscious love, that something in her opened that never closed again. She asked her mother, "Who will be my husband?" And her mother, half in jest and half in something else, said, "Yours is already chosen. Your husband is Sri Krishna." Mira took this as the literal truth. She grew up talking to Krishna the way other children talk to their closest friend, telling him everything, the small things and the large things, the thoughts that had no words, the place inside her that no one else could reach. And she discovered something extraordinary. He reached it. But then came the wedding. Mira was married into another royal family, a palace full of people, a husband, in-laws, attendants, a court full of human presence. And she was more private, more alone, more unseen than she had ever been in her life. Not because the people were terrible, not because no one tried to connect, but because the place where she truly lived, the language she actually spoke from the inside, was one that nobody in that palace shared. They would see her sitting in the temple for hours and think, "What is wrong with her?" They would hear her singing and think, "This is embarrassing for the family." They would watch her give away her jewelry to pilgrims and think she has lost her mind. They were all looking at the outside of her life and seeing something they could not understand, because the inside of her life was happening in a language they did not speak. This is what the first kind of loneliness feels like. You are not invisible to people. They see you every day. They feed you. They worry about you. They include you in every gathering. But they cannot follow you into the place where you actually live. And after a while, you stop expecting them to. And the gap just sits there, permanent and unnamed, between the life everyone can see and the life only you are living inside. Mira chose not to pretend that gap was not there. She chose not to perform the language of the people around her and abandon her own. She kept singing. She kept talking to the presence that met her in the room no one else could enter. And something remarkable happened. The very thing that made her a stranger in the palace made her known across all of India. Her songs, those bhajans she sang in that language nobody around her spoke, spread everywhere. 500 years later, we still sing them. Because when she stopped trying to make the outside world understand the inside one and simply lived from the inside one, she became the most known person of her age. The sage turns to the traveler very gently. "You said no one can reach the deepest place in you." Mira says, "You are right, and it is not a failure. The deepest place in you speaks a language that most people around you were not given the ears to hear. That is not a wound. It is not evidence that you are broken or strange, or too much, or too little. It is simply the truth that some rooms in a person only open inward, and the presence that meets you there has always been present, even when you could not feel it, even on the nights when the gap felt the largest. Mira did not fix her loneliness by finding people who understood her better. She fixed it by going deeper into the room that ached until she found that it was not empty after all. It had been full all along of something she had been in conversation with since she was a child. Let that settle into you now like moonlight on still water. You need not hold it. Just let it rest. After a quiet while, the traveler stirs. That is beautiful, Holy One. But Mira found that presence. She had a relationship with something larger than herself. I'm not sure I have that. And when I sit with the loneliness of that gap, there is a crueler thought underneath it. What if the reason no one reaches me there is not because the room is sacred, but because it is broken? What if it is not that I speak a different language? What if there is simply not enough there to be worth knowing? What if the loneliness is not a gap in the connection, but a gap in me? The sage nods slowly. Now you have named the second kind of loneliness, and it is the cruelest of the three, because it turns the ache inward. It is not just, no one can reach me there. It is, maybe I am the reason they cannot. Maybe if they could see what is really inside, they would not want to stay. This is the loneliness that wears the mask of self-knowledge. It says, I am not lonely because I am unseen. I am lonely because I deserve to be. For this, I have a story about a man who walked into a room full of the most important people in the land, and every single one of them laughed at him and what he chose to do next. Long ago, in the court of the great King Janaka of Mithila, a gathering of the finest scholars in the kingdom had assembled. Learned men, proud men, men who had spent their lives accumulating knowledge, and who wore that knowledge on the outside like expensive clothes. Into this gathering walked a young man named Ashtavakra, and the moment he walked in, the learned men laughed, because Ashtavakra's body was bent in 8 places. He had been born this way, his limbs crooked, his spine curved, his walk awkward and strange. In a court of perfectly composed scholars, he was the most physically unusual person in the room. And they laughed at him, all of them. The most credentialed people in the kingdom took one look and laughed. Now hear what the loneliness of that moment was. It was not just the laughter, it was what the laughter said. We have looked at you, and we have decided you are not worth taking seriously. We know what you are before you have said a word. We have rendered our verdict, and our verdict is not enough. That verdict, delivered by a room full of people who are supposed to be wise, is the cruelest form of the lonely thought you carry at 3 a.m. The thought that says, if they could truly see me, they would laugh too. Ashtavakra stood in that room and heard the laughter. And then he made a choice, the choice that makes this story matter for you tonight. He could have left. Most people would have left. Most people When a room delivers that verdict, either leave or spend the rest of their lives trying to prove the room wrong. Both of those responses give the laughter power. Both of them say, the room's verdict matters. Ashtavakra did neither. He laughed back. Not in anger, not in performance, but with genuine amusement. And when Janaka asked why he was laughing, Ashtavakra looked around the room of learned men and said, I came to a court of philosophers, and I find only cobblers. Every man here is evaluating the leather, the outer casing, the shape of the container. Not one of them is looking at what is inside. The room went silent because he was right, and they knew it. Janaka invited him to sit and teach, and what followed became the Ashtavakra Gita, one of the most powerful spiritual texts in the entire tradition. Janaka asked him, "Who am I really?" And Ashtavakra said, without ceremony, as simply as telling someone the time of day, "You are not the body. You are not the shape of you. You are not the thing that other people see and evaluate and laugh at or approve of. You are the witnessing consciousness, the awareness that is watching all of this happen, the one who sees. Rest in that, and you will be free." Now hear what this means for your lonely thought tonight. The cruel thought that says, maybe there is nothing worth knowing inside me. That thought is the room laughing. It has made the same mistake as those scholars. It has evaluated the leather and delivered a verdict on the light. But here is what Ashtavakra's choice shows you. He did not hide the room at the center of himself. He did not build higher walls because the world had laughed. He walked forward. He stayed in the room. He sat before the king. He taught because he was rooted in something so solid that the laughter of the entire court could not move it. He knew what he was. He knew he was the witness, the awareness, the light inside the crooked container. And from that knowing, isolation was not even a temptation, because you do not need to hide a light from judgment. Light does not care whether the room approves of it. Light simply is. The gap at the center of you, the room no one can fully enter, is not broken. It is not unworthy. It is not evidence of your inadequacy. It is the nature of the witness itself, which can never be fully known by another person because it is the knower. And no one can know the knower the way they know a thing, because the knower is not a thing. It is the light that sees all the other things. And light does not need to earn its right to shine. Let the cruel thought loosen now. Breathe and let it ease. The traveler is very still now. One last question rises, barely a whisper. Holy One. Mira found the presence in the room. Ashtavakra knew what he was. But I'm not a saint, and I'm not a philosopher. I am an ordinary person. And what I feel is something very specific. It is not that I am unknown. People know me. Many people know me. Some people would say they know me well, but none of them know what it is like to be me on the inside. They know the version of me that I have been able to show them. They claim me. They love their version of me. But the actual me, the one lying here right now in the dark, that one is alone. Is there anyone who has felt that specifically? not the loneliness of being ignored, but the loneliness of being claimed by everyone and known by no one. The sage is quiet for a long moment, and then he says, "Yes, there is one. Let me tell you about him. He was a weaver. He sat at a loom every day in a city on the Ganges, and he was the most claimed person in India, and one of the most privately, deeply, specifically alone. And what he found at the bottom of that loneliness was the most unexpected thing. About 600 years ago in the holy city of Varanasi, there lived a man named Kabir. He had no clear origin, found as an infant floating in a basket on a lake, adopted by a Muslim weaver family, drawn in his heart to the Hindu devotional path, growing up belonging fully to neither world and deeply authentically at home in both. The Hindus said, "Kabir is one of ours." The Muslims said, "Kabir is one of ours." The Sikhs, centuries later, said, "Kabir is one of ours," and included his words in their most sacred scripture. Three great traditions. All of them claimed him, all of them loved him, all of them quoted him. None of them could fully contain what he actually was. Every group that claimed him also reduced him, filed him down to fit their own understanding, took the parts of him that made sense to them, and quietly set aside the parts that did not. This is the third loneliness, and it is the one that the successful, the social, the beloved often carry in silence. It is the loneliness that comes from being popular and still invisible. The loneliness of the person who is invited to every gathering and leaves every gathering having shown only a fraction of themselves. The loneliness of the person whose real thoughts, the ones that come at 3 a.m., would make the people who love them say, "I didn't know you thought like that. I don't quite understand that version of you." Kabir knew this loneliness intimately. He lived it every single day. Every conversation he had, someone was trying to fit him into a category he did not fit. Every poem he wrote, someone interpreted it in a way that missed the actual point. Every time he spoke, he could feel the gap between what he meant and what was received. And yet Kabir sat at his loom every day and he sang. Not the sad songs of a lonely man, not the bitter songs of someone who had given up on being understood, but songs of such warmth, such intimacy, such closeness with something at the center of his own being, that people stopped in the streets of Varanasi to listen. Songs that sounded like he was having a conversation with someone who understood him completely, which he was. He wrote this in plain weaver's language, not the language of scholars. When everything in the world fails to support you, and when nobody is around to speak to you, depend on the illumination that comes from within. Only then will you realize that yourself is your light and yourself your strength, and that there is nothing except yourself when everything else in the world falls away. Feel what he is saying, not God will come and keep you company, not the right person will eventually understand you. Something more immediate than either of those. He is saying, when no one can reach the innermost place, you discover that the innermost place has always been its own company, that the awareness at the center of you, the one that knows it is not fully known, the one that feels the gap, the one that lies awake in the dark, being quietly, privately itself. That one is not alone. It is the light, and you cannot be alone inside your own light. You cannot be separate from your own seeing. Kabir was claimed by everyone and understood by no one, and discovered that he needed neither claim nor understanding, because the innermost place in him was already in the only conversation that had ever fully satisfied him, the conversation between the self and the light the self is made of. The sage turns to the traveler one last time. The loneliness you described, claimed by everyone, known by no one, is not evidence that you are fundamentally unknowable. It is evidence that you have a depth that most conversations are not long enough to reach, and most people are not still enough to wait for. But the depth itself is not waiting for anyone. It is already in conversation with the light it is made of, right now, right here, even as you lie in the dark thinking no one sees you. Something sees you from the inside, and it has been there since before you had words for the feeling. And now, the river is very quiet. The traveler who came tonight carrying the ache of the innermost gap sits still. Something has shifted, not solved, not fixed the way a broken thing is fixed, but the loneliness has been named 3 times, in 3 different ways. And the naming has done something the loneliness could not survive intact. Because it turns out these 3 kinds of loneliness, the stranger in your own life, the self-accusation in the dark, the claimed by everyone known by no one, all 3 of them point to the same thing. They are all descriptions of a person who is deep enough to feel the gap between the surface life and the inner one. And the tradition says that gap is not a wound. It is the doorway. You are in that soft place now. There is nothing left to figure out, nothing to resolve before morning. Carry only the gentlest echoes into sleep. That the room at the center of you was never shaped for human connection to fill. And that is not a wound. It is a shape. That you are not the leather the world evaluates. You are the light inside. And Ashtavakra walked into a room that laughed at him and did not flinch, because light does not need permission to shine. And that Kabir sat at his loom, claimed by everyone, understood by no one, and was the least alone person in Varanasi, because he had found the conversation at the center of himself that had been going on since before he was born. The old sage sits on by the water, as he always has, and as he always will. The little lamp burns steady beside him, not asking whether anyone sees it, simply burning, because that is what light does. The great river moves slowly past in the dark, silver and patient and deep, full of stars tonight, more stars than usual, as though the sky itself wanted to show you how much light there is in what appears to be darkness. You do not need to follow it. You do not need to go anywhere at all. Just let yourself be carried, softly and without effort, down and down into sleep. The room at the center of you has never been empty. It has only ever been quiet, and quiet is not alone. Rest now. Mira is still singing. Kabir is still at his loom, and the light inside you is awake and whole and has never been anything else. Dharma holds you. The river carries you. Sleep.